You're huddled in a vast stone chamber, the wind howling like a pack of wolves outside, and the air so cold it bites at your skin like invisible fangs. It's the dead of winter in a medieval castle where the walls are thick as ancient oaks, but they do little to keep out the frost. How did people survive the night without modern heaters or thick duvets? What secrets did they uncover to cheat the cold and live to see dawn? As we dive into this forgotten world, you'll discover tales of ingenuity, hardship, and surprising comforts that turned icy fortresses into havens of rest. Join me on this journey through history, where every stone has a story and every firelit night reveals the resilience of the human spirit. In the heart of medieval Europe during the 12th century, the great castle of Windsor loomed over the English countryside like a watchful giant. It was here, in the shadow of King Henry II's towering keep, that Sir Geoffrey of Ashford, a seasoned knight in his mid-40s, prepared for another unforgiving winter night. Geoffrey wasn't just any nobleman, he was a man forged in the Crusades, with scars from the Holy Land etched into his weathered face. But even he, with his tales of desert sands and blazing suns, dreaded the bone-chilling English winters that turned castle stones into blocks of ice. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of deep crimson and indigo, the castle's inhabitants began their nightly ritual. The great hall, a cavernous space with high vaulted ceilings and flickering torchlight, buzzed with activity. Servants scurried about, their breath visible in the frigid air as they stoked the massive hearths that lined the walls. These fireplaces weren't the dainty ones we see today. They were enormous, often built into the walls themselves, capable of devouring entire logs the size of a man's arm. The flames danced wildly, casting long shadows that played tricks on the eye, making the tapestries on the walls seem alive with mythical beasts in heroic deeds. Geoffrey, wrapped in a heavy woolen cloak lined with fur from a northern wolf he'd slain years ago, watched from his wooden throne-like chair near the fire. He often reflected on how his ancestors had built these fortresses not just for defense against invaders, but as bulwarks against nature's own assaults. Castles like Windsor or the imposing Château de Chinon in France were marvels of engineering, but their thick stone walls, while impenetrable to arrows and siege engines, were poor insulators against the cold. The very material that kept enemies out let the chill seep in, turning the interiors into frozen labyrinths by nightfall. To combat this, the people of the castle employed an arsenal of clever strategies that blended necessity with innovation. First came the lairs. Oh, the lairs. Unlike our modern bedding, medieval folk didn't have the luxury of electric blankets or down comforters. Instead, they relied on what they called bedding bundles. Piles of straw-stuffed mattresses, woolen blankets, and animal skins stacked high to trap body heat. Geoffrey's own bed, in his private chamber off the Great Hall, was a four-poster affair, its frame carved from sturdy oak and draped with heavy curtains of thick linen. These curtains, often called bed hangings, could be drawn shut to create a makeshift cocoon, blocking out drafts and retaining the warmth from a brazier burning in the corner. But let's not romanticize it too much. Sleeping in a medieval castle was no fairy tale. The chambers were drafty, with gaps in the stonework that let in whistling winds, and the floors were often bare earth or cold flagstones. In winter, frost would creep up the walls, and the air smelled of smoke, damp stone, and the faint musk of unwashed bodies. Hygiene wasn't a priority in those days. Geoffrey remembered a particularly brutal night in 1170 when a fierce snowstorm battered the castle. He and his men had to huddle together in the barracks, sharing body heat like wolves in a den. It was then that he learned the value of communal sleeping, a practice common among soldiers and servants alike. In the lower levels of the castle, where the common folk slept, things were even more rudimentary. The servants' quarters were often in the undercroft, a dimly lit basement area used for storage and sleeping. Here, rows of wooden pallets lined the walls, each covered with a thin layer of straw in a single blanket. To stay warm, they layered on every scrap of clothing they owned: tunics, hose, even hats and mittens. Some would wrap themselves in cloaks made from sheepskin or the hides of deer, which not only provided insulation but also a surprising level of comfort. It was astonishing how these simple materials, sourced from the surrounding forests and farms, could make all the difference between life and death. Geoffrey often shared stories with his squire, a wide-eyed lad named Thomas, about how the Romans had influenced these practices. Back in the days of the Empire, soldiers in Britannia used heated floors called hypocausts, but by the medieval era, such luxuries had faded. Instead, innovations came from the Vikings and Normans, who brought fur-lined garments and the concept of the longhouse, a communal space where everyone slept near the fire. In castles like Edinburgh in Scotland, which Geoffrey had visited during a diplomatic mission, the Great Hall served as a multifunctional room, feasting by day, sleeping by night. The lord and his family might claim the upper platforms, while retainers sprawled on the floor, their bodies forming a human tapestry around the central hearth. One particularly riveting tale from Geoffrey's past involved a winter siege at Rochester Castle in 1215 during the Barons' War against King John. The castle was under attack and supplies were low, including firewood. The defenders, including Geoffrey's uncle, had to improvise. They used hot stones, heated in the fire and wrapped in cloth, to place at the foot of their beds, a technique that provided hours of gentle warmth without the risk of a full blaze. It was a simple yet effective method, one that saved lives during that grueling standoff. Imagine the scene, soldiers, exhausted from manning the walls, retreating to their cots, clutching these warm stones like treasured relics. The air was thick with tension, the cold a silent enemy, more formidable than the besiegers outside. As the night deepened, the castle transformed. The great hall fell silent, save for the crackle of the fire and the occasional snort of a sleeping dog. Geoffrey would retire to his chamber, where his wife, Eleanor, waited. She was a practical woman, skilled in the domestic arts, and she oversaw the preparation of their bed. First, they'd lay down a fresh layer of straw, then a woolen mattress stuffed with feathers from the castle's poultry. Over that went blankets woven from local sheep wool, traded from the nearby villages. Eleanor always insisted on adding herbs, lavender for its soothing scent, and rosemary to ward off pests. These natural additions not only made the bed more comfortable, but also helped mask the ever-present dampness. Yet, even with these precautions, freezing to death was a real threat. Historical records from monasteries like those in Canterbury revealed chilling accounts of people succumbing to the cold in unheated rooms. In 1348, during the Black Death, weakened survivors in castles across Europe struggled through harsh winters, their immune systems battered. But the resilient ones adapted. They drank warm ales and meads before bed, which provided a temporary boost to their body heat, and ate hearty stews made from root vegetables and preserved meats to build internal warmth. Geoffrey's mind often wandered to the broader world of medieval sleeping habits. In the warmer climes of Spain, castles like the Alhambra incorporated Moorish designs with intricate tilework and courtyards that captured sunlight, making them far less frigid. Meanwhile, in the frozen north of Scandinavia, people in structures like the Danish hill forts used turf roofs and thick thatch to insulate against the Arctic blasts. These cross-cultural exchanges, brought back by crusaders and traders, enriched the ways English castles combated the cold. Geoffrey himself had adopted the Arab practice of using heated oils in lamps to warm small spaces, a luxury he kept hidden in his chamber. As dawn broke, painting the castle in soft golden light, Geoffrey would arise, his breath still fogging the air. The routine was relentless: break the fast with bread and ale, then tend to the day's duties. But in those quiet moments before sleep, he marveled at how humanity had endured. From the grand halls of kings to the humble corners of servants, the art of sleeping in medieval castles was a testament to ingenuity and adaptation, a dance with the elements that ensured survival. And so, as we continue this exploration, let's delve deeper into the forgotten corners of history. What other secrets did these stone giants hold? How did children and the elderly fare in such conditions? Stay with me, and we'll uncover more astonishing tales, from the lavish beds of royalty to the makeshift nests of the common folk, all while drifting through this relaxing voyage into the past.